As the fleet of ships exited out of hyperspace, a commanding voice boomed through the ship's intercom. "Hide behind the moon," came the voice, and in unison, all of the officers replied, "Yes, my lord." Instantly, the entire fleet, hundreds of ships of varying types and sizes, shifted their positions to take cover behind the lunar body. Anakin had just left the bridge when all of the officers saluted him as he made his way down the hallway. His head was spinning, trying to keep up with the sudden flurry of activity and the seemingly meaningless orders that had just been issued. Then, suddenly, a voice cut through the commotion. It was the same commanding voice that had been heard earlier on the intercom, but now it was coming from a man standing across the hallway. "Lord Anakin, I presume?" the man said as he stepped forward, his face obscured by the darkness of the corridor. "I've been sent here to deliver an urgent message. I'm afraid it won't wait." He bowed slightly and then produced a small, silver envelope from the folds of his cloak. Anakin took the envelope. As he opened it, a yellowed piece of paper fell out. He unfolded it, revealing a simple yet cryptic message. "Your presence is requested at the palace. Gather your belongings and make haste." The rhythmic clanking of Anakin's boots reverberated across the metal floor as he paced towards his destination. Every step closer to his fate, he pulled tighter the black robes that cloaked his body, their fabric brushing against him like a lover's caress. A hood was clasped around his face, hiding any hints of identity from the potential prying eyes. The only thing visible. Two yellow orbs glowing beneath the guise of darkness. As he passed by barracks and guard posts, the eerie pair would shimmer and transform into a blazing pair of red eyes, a warning sign to all who dared witness its presence. Finally arriving at his destination, Anakin took one last glance at the hallway that sought to hold him back before disappearing into the elevator. Suddenly Valkorian spoke to him. "The time has come, Anakin. You must prove yourself worthy of the title of Darth. By defeating everyone in this tournament you would have been proven worthy, and then we can start teaching you all the powers of the Force, and a certain someone that's been quite excited to train you ever since you have heard of you," as Anakin noted, knowing what he had to do as Anakin said. "I will not fail." Thinking of Analia, he could sense the dark side in the Force in here. He was thinking of making her his apprentice. "Anakin, that's a thought for another time," I said as the sounds of the elevator nearing his destination. He couldn't wait to enter into the tournament. Jabba the Hutt will prove the perfect entrance for his new empire. He will show the power of himself and eventually his entire army. That's been sent here to conquer the Outer Rim. Elevator doors opened. He walked out of the elevator. As he was approaching his ship, Servant 1 approached him and bowed. "My orders, my lord," I said. "Prepare the shuttle. I'll make my departure to Jabba the Hutt's palace." "It will be done, my lord," said Servant 1. As the ramps of the shuttle door lowered, smoke came out of their hydraulic system. Anakin steps towards the ship. He was calm and confident. The sounds of his boots hitting the metal floor could be heard across the hangar bay. As Anakin entered the shuttle and took the pilot seat, he activated the shuttle. As it started to take off, Servant 1 guided the ship towards Jabba the Hutt's palace. They broke through the atmosphere of the planet of Tatooine. The winds were harsh, and eventually the lines of the palace could be seen. It was enormous. After all, it took over 9 years to build the second wing of Jabba the Hutt's planets. As Anakin thought, it would have been funny. I was going to be a part of this construction. That was the only reason why I was sold to Jabba the Hutt. He was slightly thanking whoever brought him to this planet, because if it wasn't for them, he would have never met Valkorian. As the silver ship descended gracefully onto the landing pad, Anakin and his servant, Servant 1, disembarked the vessel as they were approached by two burly Gamorrean guards. One of them spoke sternly. "Identify yourself." Anakin raised a hand and waved it across the faces of the Gamorreans. His voice was like ice. "You will take me to Jabba the Hutt." Without any resistance, the guards obliged and uttered in unison, "We will take you to Jabba the Hutt." Anakin and Servant 1 followed closely behind them as they strode towards their destination. The air was thick with anticipation as they crossed the dusty plain, buzzing ships flying overhead, casting fast-moving shadows on the ground below. Anakin and the two Gamorrean guards stepped into the room where Jabba the Hutt sat upon his throne. Anakin, a tall figure in a black cape, gazed around the room with an air of expectance. "I have come very far from a land that's been long forgotten," Anakin began, "but to keep it short and simple, I have come to enter the tournament." Jabba the Hutt chuckled. "Excellent," he said. "But before we start, you must sign a contract." Anakin agreed, and a droid, almost imperceptible in the shadows, approached with a piece of parchment. Anakin read through the document carefully before signing it. "So, what would you be called?" Jabba the Hutt asked. "Call me Lord Vader," Anakin replied. Jabba the Hutt nodded approvingly. "Very well. Welcome to the tournament, Lord Vader. May the best man win." Laugh excellent. Finding clear amusement in this human, he somewhat reminded him of this young bounty hunter he just gave away the contract to. As Jabba the Hutt waved his hand to one of his slaves, guide this gentleman and his servant to their quarters. Yes master, said it will. Excellent. Anakin did not care about slavery. He thought in his head only the strong survive and weak perish. As Anakin remembered Valkorian words as Anakin was guided towards his quarters, he entered his room. It was quite spacious. He thought quite fitting he will stay here for a while, he thought as he put away his equipment. Still wearing his robes, he went down in the meditation position. He started to meditate in the Force and the dark side. As a few hours went by, he decided to do push-ups, sit-ups and pull-ups. He went to a training field, start practicing his Force abilities and lightsaber. As Analia saw a young boy training, he felt familiar as she approached him. Who are you? She asks, curiosity taking the better of her. As Anakin knew exactly who this was, he was trying so really hard to resist telling her the truth. But I decided it better this way. Eventually he'll tell her the truth. My name is Vader, he said in a cold tone, changing his voice slightly bit so she couldn't recognize him as. She nodded. My name is Analia, she said in an arrogant attitude. If that is all, Vader said, leave me be, I'll be training. Analia taking this as a challenge, she said. How about we spar? Vader said no firmly. Oh come on now, Analia said. Are you scared? Anakin snapped. He said with a sigh, yes, I'll spar you. Will do hand to hand the first, she said with a happy attitude. Okay, ask. Both of them went into the stance as Analia lunged forward, her legs shooting out with a powerful roundhouse kick aimed at Anakin's head. He deftly dodged the attack and retaliated with a jab to her kidney, making her wince in pain and jump back. Growling in determination, she kept up her attack, defending against Anakin's flurry of punches. She was quick enough to block and dodge most of his strikes, but it wasn't easy. Anakin studied her fighting style, looking for any weaknesses he could exploit. He increased his speed of attacks, focusing on Analia's weak points. She fought hard despite being physically exhausted, trying to anticipate Anakin's every move. The kidney threw a hard kick, but she blocked it. Anakin snickered and asked, is that all you got? Seeing her rage, she lunged forward with a punch. Anakin caught her fist in one hand and used an expert karate throw to send her to the ground. She growled in pain, and before she could react, Anakin had her in a headlock. As he began to squeeze, she frantically tapped the ground, surrendering. Reluctantly, Anakin released her. From his grasp, he was breathing heavily as Anakin sneered, you have much to learn. You got lucky this time, but your luck will run out sooner or later. My recommendation is to drop out of this tournament before you get yourself killed. Without another word, Anakin turned and walked away. Analia clenched her fists in anger as Anakin walked away. She had never been so humiliated before and she couldn't stand it. She wanted revenge, and she was determined to defeat him the next time they met. Anakin, oblivious to her resentment, continued walking towards the training grounds. He knew he had won this round, but he felt a strange sense of guilt. Analia was a powerful opponent and he could see her potential. Maybe he should have given her more encouragement instead of trying to discourage her. Regardless though, Anakia was determined to continue with her training and get her revenge on Anakin. Anakin grabbed his tray of food and headed towards the corner of the lunchroom. As he walked, he noticed a Mandalorian warrior seated in the center of the room surrounded by several other competitors. The Mandalorian was wearing full armor and had a rifle slung across his back, but what caught Anakin's attention was the man beside him. He had blue skin and red eyes and was wearing a cowboy hat. His strange appearance made most of the other competitors scoff in amusement, but Anakin wasn't fazed. Anakin sat down at an empty table near the corner and began to eat his meal. He had just started when he heard a voice from behind him say, "Hey kid. You doing alright?" Anakin turned to see a tall lizard-like man with orange scales standing there. It was then that he realized that everyone in this area was competitors in the tournament, all looking at him as if he were some sort of joke. Anakin stood up and faced them all, meeting their stares with confidence. "I'm doing just fine, thank you for asking," he said calmly as he bowed slightly to them all before sitting back down to finish his meal. The others looked surprised at Anakin's poise and soon lost interest in him as they continued talking amongst themselves. When Anakin finished eating, as a random person who resembled a shark approached him saying, well, aren't you far away from my kindergarten?" As he approached, Anakin was ignoring him. "Are you listening to me, kid?" he shouted, taking his food tray and throw it on the ground. Anakin simply calmly grabbed his glass of water and start drinking it. "Huh, what a punk like you doing here?" the shark man screamed as he said, "If you're Not going to listen to what I have to say. I'm going to have to teach you a valuable lesson, kid. As he was about to grab him, Anakin drank his water, grabbed his fork and stabbed it at the man's hand, and used the very same glass he was holding and smashing on his face. Of the result, the man was missing a hand. As he screamed, Anakin stood up and climbed on top of the table and said, "Next time one of you waste of space ever have the audacity to threaten me, you would see your fate sealed forever. My name is Lord Vader. I might be young, but I assure you I am stronger than every one of you in this room." I see, setting with conviction as he said again, "Let this be a warning, I won't go as easy as when on this man was in the tournament. I won't hold back." As Anakin jumped off his table and quickly made his way out of the lunchroom, everyone in there was shocked as Anakin went towards his door and opened it. He quickly made his way and I went towards his bed. As he jumped in, he fell asleep. Anakin woke up as he did this morning routine. He quickly made his way out as a slave was waiting just outside his room. Jabba requests the presence of all participants of the tournaments. As Anakin nodded and followed the slave as Anakin entered the arena. The arena itself is a colossal, circular structure situated on the outskirts of the desert city. Its towering sandstone walls are adorned with ancient hieroglyphics and intricate patterns that tell the stories of battles long past. The harsh Tatooine sun beats down on the arena, casting long shadows across the sandy battleground. As the sun sets and the twin moons of Tatooine rise into the sky, the arena comes to life. The stands are filled with a diverse and raucous crowd, including smugglers, droids, Jawas, and even the occasional Jedi. Spectators cheer and jeer, placing bets on their favorite combatants as they prepare for the night's entertainment. In the center of the arena, the fighting pit is a circular expanse of sand, meticulously raked and prepared for combat. The combatants, a mix of alien species, bounty hunters, and gladiators, enter the arena through a grand archway, their armor glistening in the twilight. Some wield blasters, others carry vibroblades, and a few have their lightsabers at the ready. As Anakin took his place in the center of the arena, a hush fell over the crowd. He watched as Jabba took to the podium and cleared his throat. "Welcome, all participants of today's tournament," he bellowed, his voice echoing off the stone walls. "Today, you will fight for glory, money, and fame. But remember, only one shall stand and one shall fall." The crowd erupted into cheers, but Anakin raised his hand and they instantly silenced. "This should be a great honor for all of you, as you have all shown exceptional talents to be able to come here," he said, his voice low and commanding. "But don't let that get into your head, you're not the only special one here." As he spoke, Anakin let his gaze sweep across the crowd, meeting the eyes of each of the participants. He knew that each one was capable of greatness, but also of failure. But he knows he is stronger than them all. The first fight will be Analia versus Fex Riler. Fex Riler was a rich kid from Coruscant. He had heard of this tournament. Arrogantly believed that you could beat anyone in this tournament with relative ease. As he stepped forward, he took his position in the arena as he was waiting for his opponent to come. As Analia stepped forward, taking her position, as Vex taunted her, saying, "What is a little kid doing in this tournament? You should probably go back to your mommy before I make you cry," he said in a cocky tone. Analia clenched her fist, remembering Shmai, as she couldn't wait to kick this man's ass. "Master Proctor came to the battlefield. Are all fighters ready?" he asked in a stern tone as they both said in unison yes. As the proctor spoke, "The rules are there are no rules, but there are two that you have to follow. If your opponent surrenders or tap out, then the match is over. And the second rule, it goes by knockouts or kill. If ever these things occur in the match, they'll give the person that did this the automatic win. So do you all understand?" Yes, they both said okay. Let the match begin. Analia rushed towards her opponent. She took her outer knife and started sending a flurry of stabbing emotions towards him. He dodged and jumped backwards, taking out his two blaster pistols as he started opening fire at her. She took out her shield and started blocking the blaster bolts. As she threw the shield at him, it hit him, so he dropped one of his blasters, and before he could react, she was already on him like a hawk. He shot his other blaster right off his hand, and he took out his knife at his last line of defense. She could have just shot him right there and kill him. But she decided to make him pay a little bit as she took out her own life, and they start being a knife battle. She launched at him, throwing one of her knives at him. He dodged it as they sent a flurry of knife strikes towards each other. As he tried to throw a jab towards her, she met the blade head on with her own blade, and they were in a lock. "Oh, did your mommy not teach you anything about how to use a knife?" he asked in a joking manner, obviously mocking her as Analia felt the rage taking over her as she broke the lock and started sending flurry on knife strikes. She managed to stop him in a leg and follow up with a devastating elbow towards his face, breaking his jaw before he could surrender. He jumped out and canned, repeatedly stabbing on the throat, blood oozing out of the corpse as the crowd started to cheer. The winner is Analia. The proctor shouted out loud, the crowd cheering even more as she pulled the knife out of his neck and cleaned it as she returned to her spot. A few more random fights happen. In the heart of the Tatooine arena, under the scorching twin suns, a crowd had gathered in anticipation of a battle that would go down in the annals of the galaxy's most renowned duels. In one corner stood the infamous Django Fett, clad in his distinctive Mandalorian armor, cool and composed. In the other corner, the equally notorious Cad Bane, with his wide-brimmed hat and blue-skinned visage, exuding an air of calculated confidence. The crowd's deafening roar subsided as the announcer's voice boomed across the arena. Ladies and gentlemen, beings of all species, you are about to witness a showdown between two of the galaxy's deadliest bounty hunters. In this corner, we have the Mandalorian myth himself, Django Fett. Cheers erupted from the spectators. The announcer continued, and in the opposite corner, the master of manipulation, the gunslinger extraordinaire, Cad Bane. A different set of cheers filled the air, a testament to the notoriety of both combatants. As the starting signal sounded, Cad Bane was the first to make his move, quick on the draw as he fired his blasters at Django Fett. Django's reflexes were as sharp as ever, his helmet's targeting system locking onto Cad Bane's weapons. He effortlessly deflected the blaster bolts with his wrist-mounted gauntlets. Django retaliated with a rapid burst of blaster fire, forcing Cad Bane to dart behind a pillar for cover. The two hunters engaged in a deadly game of cat and mouse, exchanging shots and darting between cover. For what felt like an eternity, the battle raged on. Blaster bolts whizzed through the air, and explosions sent plumes of sand into the sky. The arena's sands were stained with scorch marks and debris. Django Fett's skill with his weapons and his Mandalorian training gave him a slight edge, but Cad Bane's cunning tactics and adaptability were unmatched. He used smoke grenades, wrist cables, and even his rocket boots to gain tactical advantages. The crowd watched in awe as the two hunters relentlessly clashed, their expertise on full display. As time wore on, Cad Bane, battered and bruised, began to realize that defeating Django Fett was an increasingly improbable task. Django's relentless pursuit and unwavering precision were wearing him down. Finally, with sweat pouring down his blue face, Cad Bane realized he had met his match. He activated his rocket boots one last time to create distance, and then raised his hands in a sign of surrender. "Alright, Fett," he gasped, "you win this one." The crowd erupted into cheers and applause, acknowledging the extraordinary duel they had just witnessed. Django Fett lowered his blasters and nodded in respect to his adversary. Cad Bane, battered but still breathing, limped out of the arena, defeated but not broken. In the end, the Tatooine arena had seen a battle for the ages, with Django Fett emerging as the victor. The legends of both bounty hunters would only grow, forever etching their names in the history of the galaxy's most feared and respected hunters. Amidst the sweltering heat of Tatooine's twin suns, the arena buzzed with anticipation. Spectators from across the galaxy had gathered to witness an epic showdown between two of the most feared bounty hunters in the Outer Rim, Django Fett and Cad Bane. The scorching sand underfoot seemed to simmer with tension as the two hunters faced each other from opposite ends of the arena. The crowd's eager murmurs were silenced by the sudden blaring of horns, signaling the beginning of the duel. With a fluid motion, Django Fett unholstered his dual Wester 34 blaster pistols, their metallic sheen reflecting the harsh sunlight. Cad Bane's hand twitched near the holsters of his trademark LL-30 blaster pistols, and the wide brim of his hat cast a shadow over his cold, blue-skinned face. Without a word, the battle began. Cad Bane drew first, unleashing a hail of blaster bolts aimed at Django Fett. The Mandalorian bounty hunter was quicker than most, his jetpack igniting with a whoosh as he propelled himself into the air, narrowly avoiding the barrage. Django returned fire mid-air, blaster bolts streaking towards Cad Bane with pinpoint accuracy. Cad Bane's reflexes were as legendary as his reputation, and he somersaulted backward, narrowly avoiding Django's shots. Landing with cat-like agility, he fired back, forcing Django to take cover behind a durasteel pillar. The arena's energy crackled with anticipation as the hunters engaged in a deadly game of hide-and-seek. Blaster bolts ricocheted off pillars, and the crowd was treated to a breathtaking display of marksmanship and agility. With a flash of brilliance, Cad Bane activated his rocket boots, propelling himself into the air. Django, ever the tactician, anticipated the move and fired a wrist-mounted cable, ensnaring one of Bane's boots. Cad Bane spiraled out of control, crashing into the sand. Seizing the opportunity, Django Fett descended upon Cad Bane, jetpack roaring. Bane rolled to his feet, and as Django attempted to pin him down, Bane expertly drew his LL-30s from their holsters and unleashed a barrage of blaster bolts, forcing Django to veer away, narrowly avoiding the lethal hail of energy. The fight raged on, both hunters exhibiting their unparalleled skills and determination. Blaster bolts flew, rockets ignited, and the arena was consumed by their relentless pursuit of victory. As the battle wore on and the Tatooine suns beat down upon them, both combatants began to show signs of fatigue. The crowd watched in awe as these two titans clashed, each move a testament to their mastery of the hunt. But as sweat poured from their brows and their armor bore the scars of battle, it became clear that this fight would not be decided quickly. Who would emerge victorious in this duel of bounty hunter legends? Only time would tell as the battle continued to escalate in intensity, pushing both Django Fett and Cad Bane to their limits. The Tatooine arena was now a battlefield of attrition. Blaster bolts continued to blaze through the air as Django Fett and Cad Bane relentlessly pursued each other. The once rowdy crowd was now hushed, captivated by the relentless duel between these two elite bounty hunters. Despite his cunning tactics, Cad Bane's energy was waning. His movements were becoming less precise, and fatigue began to take its toll. Django Fett, on the other hand, remained resolute and determined, his Mandalorian training and combat experience keeping him in the fight. Django pressed his advantage, advancing on Cad Bane with calculated precision. Blaster bolts from his Wester 34 pistols were coming dangerously close to their target, forcing Cad Bane into a desperate retreat. Realizing that he couldn't maintain this level of combat indefinitely, Cad Bane sought an opportunity to end the fight on his terms. As Django closed in, Bane activated his rocket boots again, propelling himself high into the air, away from his relentless pursuer. Django Fett's helmet visor tracked Bane's movements, and he fired a cable from his gauntlet, attempting to snag Cad Bane mid-flight. The cable missed its mark, and Cad Bane, now hovering above the arena floor, knew he had to make a decision. With sweat-soaked clothing and exhaustion setting in, Cad Bane assessed the situation. He knew he couldn't outgun Django Fett, and his energy was rapidly depleting. In a bold and unexpected move, he switched off his jetpack, causing himself to plummet towards the ground like a stone. Django, momentarily confused by the maneuver, watched as Cad Bane crashed into the sand with a thud. Bane groaned in pain, his hat askew, and his weapons scattered around him. His energy was spent, and he knew he couldn't continue the fight. Rising slowly to his feet, Cad Bane raised his hands in a sign of surrender, his voice hoarse from fatigue. "All right, Fett," he conceded, "you win this one." The crowd erupted into a mix of cheers and gasps, impressed by the sheer tenacity and cunning of both bounty hunters. Django Fett, his blasters still trained on Cad Bane, nodded in acknowledgement of his opponent's surrender. The battle was over, and Django had emerged victorious. As the arena's medical droids rushed to tend to the battered and bruised Cad Bane, the crowd's admiration for both bounty hunters grew. It was a battle for the ages, one that would be spoken of for years to come in the dusty corners of the galaxy, a testament to the indomitable spirit of those who lived and fought on the harsh sands of Tatooine. As the proctor stood up and proclaimed Django Fett the winner as the crowd screamed, "Django, Django, Django, Django." Icy holstered this blaster pistols and went back to his spot that he was before everyone staring at him, including Anakin. That was a quite impressive fight. He thought maybe he could use them in his army, they put that for a later time. That's in the heart of the Tatooine arena, under the relentless gaze of the twin suns, the crowd hushed in anticipation as the proctor stepped forward. "Ladies and gentlemen, beings of all species, get ready for an intriguing showdown in our next match." In this corner, the young and enigmatic Lord Vader. A murmur of curiosity rippled through the crowd as an 8-year-old boy, Lord Vader, entered the arena. He wore simple clothing, his face partially obscured by a hood, revealing only his innocent eyes. No one suspected the incredible force sensitivity hidden within him. And in the opposite corner, a rising star, Analia. The crowd's excitement surged again as a formidable young fighter, Analia, emerged with her vibroblades, her eyes locked on Lord Vader, unaware of his latent force powers. The proctor signaled the start of the battle, and the duel began. Lord Vader and Analia circled each other cautiously. Analia lunged forward with her vibroblades, her attack swift and deadly. Lord Vader, seemingly inexperienced, blocked her strikes with skill beyond his years, using his limited physical abilities and keen instincts. As the battle progressed, Analia's confidence grew. She pressed her attacks, aiming to overwhelm the young Lord Vader. Unbeknownst to her, his latent force sensitivity began to manifest. Lord Vader's precognition allowed him to anticipate Analia's moves, narrowly avoiding her strikes with uncanny timing. Analia, frustrated by Lord Vader's seemingly unnatural defenses, increased the intensity of her attacks. But Lord Vader's connection to the Force grew stronger with each passing moment. He reached out with his mind and instinctively manipulated the sand around him, sending small whirlwinds of dust toward Analia, temporarily blinding her and disrupting her attacks. Confusion and awe spread through the audience as they witnessed Lord Vader's mysterious abilities. Analia, struggling to regain her composure, found herself at a disadvantage. Seizing the opportunity, Lord Vader, with newfound confidence, disarmed Analia and won the match. The crowd erupted into a mix of astonishment and applause. They had witnessed a young boy with hidden talents that would one day change the galaxy. As Lord Vader was declared the victor, nobody suspected the incredible destiny that awaited him. The Tatooine arena had been the stage for the emergence of a young Force-sensitive prodigy, and the galaxy would soon feel the impact of his untapped power. Analia was happy. If it's one person that she felt that she would lose to, this was definitely the person. She accepted a loss and promised her, so she'll become more powerful next time. Excavator gave her a hand, so she could use to pull herself up as she nodded. Vader said after this torment, "I need to tell you something." She didn't know what he meant by it, but she didn't mind. She'll be watching, see who would win anyway, so she know that she went to the same place she was before to watch more fights taking place. As the proctor went towards Vader and asked him to make a speech, "All of yours, cuz they're all curious who is this new fight to them, never heard." As he agreed, he went up to the podium and said this, "I am Lord Vader, soon to be champion of this tournament." Everyone is crowded. It was booing him, thinking this kid was getting too arrogant because he defeated the little kid, as Vader sent out a wave of killing intent towards the crowd, shutting them up instantly. As he spoke, "I don't care who was against me, which opponent I face, I will not be defeated, because frankly all of you stand no chance against me, and I'll make this promise: by the end of this tournament you will see a new legacy being forged here. This will change the galaxy forever." He said the firm tone, "Anyone that stands against me will be eliminated swiftly and effectively," as he said, stunning the crowd instantly as he spoke. That is all for now, as he went back to his spot where he was before, waiting for the next fight to take place. Everyone was staring at Vader, this new fighter, some with general fear and some with a desire to teach this kid a lesson. But Vader did not care about their opinions about him. All he cared about was to win, and that's what he was going to do. As a few more random fights came, he was in the semifinals. Now Vader was quite excited to finally finish this tournament and declare his presence to the galaxy. As the next fight was announced, Django Fett vs Bosk. Amidst the scorching dunes of Tatooine, the proctor's voice reverberated through the arena as he announced, "Ladies and gentlemen, beings of all species, it's time for the fight of the century." In this corner, the legendary Django Fett. Cheers erupted from the crowd as Django Fett, his Mandalorian armor gleaming under the twin suns, made his entrance. He holstered his dual Wester 34 blaster pistols, ready for action. And in the opposite corner, the merciless Trandoshan, Bosk. The crowd's excitement swelled as Bosk, towering over his opponent, entered the arena. His reptilian eyes narrowed, and his deadly RSKF-44 blaster was slung across his back. The proctor signaled the start of the match, and the two hunters circled each other warily. Bosk lunged first, his razor-sharp claws extended as he aimed to catch Django off guard. But Django was quick to react, evading the attack and retaliating with a burst of blaster fire. Bosk's tough scales absorbed most of the energy, and he growled in frustration. The fight continued, each combatant displaying their unique skills. Django relied on his agility and precise marksmanship, while Bosk used his brute strength and ferocious melee attacks. Blaster bolts crisscrossed the arena as the two hunters relentlessly exchanged fire. Bosk seized an opportunity and lunged at Django with a savage kick, sending the Mandalorian tumbling to the ground. Bosk's reptilian jaws snapped menacingly as he approached, intent on delivering a finishing blow. However, Django's survival instincts kicked in. He swiftly rolled to the side, narrowly avoiding Bosk's deadly bite. From the ground, Django fired his wrist-mounted flamethrower, engulfing Bosk in searing flames. The Trandoshan roared in pain, his scales crackling and smoldering. As Bosk staggered backward, his vision blurred from the flames. Django seized the moment. He unleashed a rapid flurry of blaster bolts, striking Bosk repeatedly. The Trandoshan's body convulsed with each hit until, with a thunderous crash, he collapsed onto the sandy arena floor. The crowd watched in awe as Bosk lay motionless, defeated by Django Fett's relentless assault. Django stood victorious, his helmeted gaze steady as he holstered his blasters. The proctor declared Django the winner by knockout, and the arena erupted in cheers for the Mandalorian bounty hunter. Django, however, showed a rare moment of mercy. He approached the fallen Bosk, his blaster pistols still at the ready, but not pointed at his foe. With a stern warning, Django said, "Stay down, Bosk. This fight is over." Bosk, battered and humbled, nodded weakly, conceding defeat. He realized that he owed his life to Django Fett's decision not to take it. The arena's medics rushed in to tend to the wounded Transition as Django retreated, victorious but unrelenting in his reputation as one of the galaxy's most formidable hunters. Proctor stood up and proclaimed Django Fett the winner. As the crowd cheered, Django Fett put his blaster back on his holster and he went back to his place, eagerly awaiting whose next opponent will be. His job stood up. It's hard to speak as he was concussion eating the last two fighters as he spoke. It's been a great fight I've seen, but the tournament is almost over and the champion will be declared soon enough, so the next fight will be Django Fett versus Lord Vader. These two combatants are the last of the fighters and only one shall stand and one shall fall. As the crowd start to scream, already making up bets and who they think they're going to win. Most of them bet on Django Fett to win, but some bet on Vader feeling that he might get lucky. After two opponents are each other up and down, Django Fett said, "I don't kill kids, she better drop out of this match before start." Did not reply, just sending Django a glare revealing to blow the red eyes Django was on. Hard when he saw that look. Vader merely just went away. He needs to meet with someone. It's urgently, I see, as he thought, time to meet the person that sent me this letter. As she went to a far corner of the Jabba the Hutt palace, I see you saw who did. Individual standing in the corner, he approached them. "Have you read the men later?" said Vader in a stern voice. "Yes, my lord." Who did individually replied. "Our agents have already spread across all the major Tatooine settlements. When I give the signal, I want you guys to conduct sabotaging campaigns against the Planetary Defense Force. I want you to jam all communications coming from this planet, and I want you to create distractions or a main army to advance. It will be done, my lord." As he goes on, the relay information to all the agents that's currently stationed in Tatooine. As Anakin returned to his quarters, Analia was waiting just outside its quarters. Anakin saw her as he ushered her in. "It's time for me to reveal who I really am." Analia suspiciously narrowing her eyes as he pulled down his cloak, revealing the face of Anakin. Analia was shocked and happy at the same time, but she was also pissed. They didn't tell her sooner. Analia went to hug him. After a few minutes of the morning, she eventually left his grasp and slapped him across the face. That's payback for earlier. "So what do you do this entire time while you were gone? Did you know that my mom died?" Anakin, pretending like he didn't know, said, "Oh really, I see." Pretended to be sad. Analia to explain and started to cry. "So what happened? Really didn't care much about Shmai." But he pretending like he did and hugs her back. "I set it up for a moment." He explained to her what happened, him going to Korriban and taking over Sozakul and his training. And his plans to invade Tatooine after he wins the tournament against Django. "Okay, I'll help you," she said. "Okay." As Anakin calls Servant 1, "Bring her to the fleet. She will lead the battle against Tatooine." "It will be done, my lord." As Anakin told her to go to the landing platform, "My servant will pick you up there." She nodded, but before she left she kissed Anakin on the cheek. I ran out of the room with blush on her face. Anakin stood there for a moment, shocked for what just happened. As Anakin smiled, I went over to his bed and slept. The next day he woke up re-energized yesterday morning, turning this morning routine. As he headed out to arena to face Django, he entered arena and he heard a crowd screaming and shouting. Jabba the Hutt crawled out to the sun and stepped in the parodium. He announced the final round of this tournament will begin. The victor shall gain glory, fame and riches that you can never possibly even imagine. But this round will be a bit more special. No weapons are allowed, no armor, just pure hands. This is going to be a hand-to-hand on that fight. It's not clear. Jabba the Hutt said in a stern tone, as they both know that Django and Vader went to their locker rooms to change. Django remove his armor and putting away weapons. He thought this will a easy fight scene break Vader's locker room. As he was putting away his weapons too, he thought there's only a quite challenges fighting a Mandalore and how to hand combat. The knew this will not be a easy fight as both of the fighters stepped out to the fighting arena. As the crowd was shouting their names, they both face each other. As the proctor came, "You guys all understand the rules?" As they both nodded, as the proctor said, "Let the fight of Lord Vader and Django Fett begin." Shout to the proctor, as their both was on their ready fighting style. The proctor said, "Ready and begin." Anakin rushed Django. He launched a few probing attacks, checking out the Mandalorian weaknesses. Anakin was fighting a hard time finding it. After all, he wasn't fighting a normal bounty hunter. Django was tired playing defense, so he tried to see what this kid is really made of. So he decided to launch a few kick stores, and it can waving and dodging through them like it's nothing. So Django decided to speed up his attacks, becoming more fast as the fight goes on. As Anakin threw a punch towards Mandalorian warrior, caught the blow, decided to throw Anakin on the ground. Before Anakin could hit the ground, she did a backflip, landing behind the Mandalorian warrior with a kick. It hit his head straight hard. Asked the Mandalorian fell. He quickly got up before Anakin can do Anything he's years of experience proving firsthand that a lucky hit won't just take him down. Anakin threw a flurry of kicks and punches. The Mandalorian caught Anakin's leg in the sight to snap it, but just before he could do that, Anakin used his other leg to kick him straight in the chest, pushing the Mandalorian back slightly. Anakin using the momentum of the push he kicked his way out to the Mandalorian's grasp as he landed straight on the ground unharmed. The Mandalorian spoke, "You good kid, pretty good, but we're just getting started," he said with a grin, gave back his own feral grin. The Mandalorian warrior decided to throw a few punches. Jobs worse. Anakin was waving and dodging through all of them. He had an idea, anything through a punch. The Django punch I still blows connected the air around them. Sorry to disperse using the momentum the clash he sprung himself upwards, and it is spinning kick landing straight on the Mandalorian head. The Mandalorian's coughing up blood, his nose was covered with it, as he charged Anakin, not expecting to get hit the man and Lori, and give him a mean right hook broke on his baby tooth. As it fell off, Anakin was shocked, it couldn't believe it. He got injured this badly as the Mandalorian wouldn't let him go. Django follow up with a devastating kick that hit his kidney. Anakin was struggling to breathe. As the Mandalorian climbed on top of Anakin, it's time to repeatedly punching Anakin's face. He did over and over and over again without his face was a bloody mess. As he was about to do the finishing blow, Anakin opened his eyes straight open, as the Mandalorian solved the most deadly red eyes he's ever seen this life. The Mandalorian throw one more punch. You try to knock out Anakin, but he caught it. The Mandalorian was terrified what he just saw. As Anakin had a deranged grin on his face, I see crushed the Mandalorian's hand, years of experience of pain. The Mandalorian didn't utter a sound or a grunt, but look in his eyes and everything as anything stood up. He had bothered the man straight on his head, nearly cracking his skull as a blood start to pour out of Anakin's face. As he went towards the Mandalorian, the crazy look on his face, and it can throw a devastating kick that directly hit his head as the Mandalorian fell down on the ground in pain as Anakin hopped on him and started repeatedly punching on the face over again, delivering the same amount of punches of the Mandalorian did. Anakin was about to send the last punch to kill this Mandalorian. As he had thought, Anakin said, "Surrender now, I have defeated you," as the Mandalorian was in no condition to continue the fight. As Mandalorian said, "All right kid, you win," as he started to chuckled to himself before Anakin hopped off. He said, "Of the laws of Mandalore I have beaten in hand-to-hand combat, so by the laws of Mandalore you are my personal knight." Django was shocked because he was a part of the true Mandalorian. Because of this, he had no choice to follow Anakin's command. I see, agreed. Anakin hopped off as he stared at terrified Proctor. Reluctantly, the Proctor declared the winner as Lord Vader. He said the crowd was shocked that this kid defeated the best bounty hunter that lives right now in their eyes. This kid was a legend as a crowd too cheer, "All hail Lord Vader, oh hail Lord Vader," as they could be heard across the arena. Jabba the Hutt said, "Now Lord Vader, come and collect your prize," as Anakin went to the center of the arena and he saw a golden cup on a date of that's wired to his account for a few billion credits. "I was another thing, and I can have the title of the champion of the Outer Rim," as he gladly added that title to his name as he stood beside Jabba the Hutt. Spoke, "Silence everyone," he said. "This young man has done what so few could. Yes, defeated all his opponents. He has defeated the great Django Fett in hand-to-hand combat. He has done what Jedi could not do, and he is so young too. He has so much to learn. Still, imagine him a part of the Hutt cartel, who make it quite useful asset to us. So I announce this with honor, this young man is that champion of the Outer Rim, the greatest fighter to ever exist in his arena, and I expect great things from him in the future, especially becoming one of our associate." Jabba the Hutt started to laugh, but he did not notice. Vader spoke. "Commenced invasion," he said in cold tone. Explosions could be heard all across the arena as Vader ignited his lightsaber and pointed at a job, but holding him hostage as everyone in Tatooine saw hundreds of ships entering the atmosphere. They were all terrified as they saw thousands of flying droids landing on the arena. As he looked up there, saw millions of them all coming down from all angles of the planet, and they saw thousands of gunship carrying soldiers landing across the city and eventually everywhere on the planet as the agents all across started to sabotage the first three, the slaves, and they gave them weapons that had smuggled in. It wasn't long before the entire street broke out in a riot. The Hot Army tried to resist, but they were outnumbered and outcome and eventually overwhelmed. Analia jumped out of the crowd standing beside Anakin, and eventually a squad of golden-clad armor wielding lightsabers came out of nowhere. Everyone thought they were Jedi, but they were no Jedi, they were Knights of Zakula. I stay flanked her leader covering his rear guard. Valkorian spoke. "I know bestow you the name Darth Vader." "Thank you grandfather," he said in his mind. Of course I know, I could hear him "Let me introduce myself," he said to the slug. "My full name is Darth Vader, heir to the Galactic Empire," he said with conviction. "Surrender all your forces, you may live or you die here with your men, and then all of the hearts will be killed," he said with a stern tone. His job without that no choice to surrender, and a few hours the entire planet was underneath Imperial occupation. They start to free the slaves as they started to rebuild Tatooine to a planet more proper for an Imperial world. As to Sky Troopers hunted any rogue tribes, including the Sand People. They were all exterminated in them in a week. As for the slug, he was publicly executed live on the holiday for everyone to see, a warning not to mess with Imperial might. In the span of a year, the entirety of the Outer Rim fell underneath Imperial rule. With these new out of the planets, the Imperial army grow ever so larger. Eventually they have thousands of warships, billions of soldiers of troops. As their technology advanced more, they even start to build a new class, Star Destroyers. I started refit some of the older ships. Zacul, they can't even more advanced. It was almost unrecognizable compared to 3 years ago. People there live happy now, the advanced technology and the peace of prosperity. This will their golden age now. As for the Republic, they publicly denounced these acts aggression and deemed the new Galactic Empire possible threat for peace and security. With the push of Senator Palpatine, they got rid of the army restrictions as they start to rearm themselves. New warships were being built in a very quick pace. The Republic had one of the biggest army build-up in centuries. As they kept building up their army, Senator Palpatine got even more power in the Senate, urging them to put more funding into the military. Eventually he forced them to get rid of the Religious Prosecution Act, making a Sith legal in the Republic now. Palpatine secretly rebuilt the Sith Academy on Korriban. He trained Sith in structure to teach the ways of the dark side to their students, and eventually the academy was flooding with new recruits. Palpatine stole the Jedi archive of potential Force users, so he sent his agents to capture his children and start training rigorously in the Force, and he added a new mandatory law for every child in the Republic to be tested for midichlorians, and if the test was positive, he would make the babies disappear. The Jedi was suspicious and what was going on, but he didn't have any proof of anything. Darth Plagueis was unaware of his apprentice dealings, and eventually Palpatine secretly reformed the Safe Order, adding a Dark Council too. As Palpatine explored a long-lost world of Brahmin cause, he explored. Eventually he managed to go to the prison complex. It was abandoned years, even centuries ago. The lights were somehow still on. Palpatine walked slowly when he entered a certain room. As he entered the room, he saw a certain man frozen in Carbon Land. Palpatine ushered his loyal Sith men to take him with him. As they took him back to Sith Academy, they went to the medical wing of it. As one of the scientists pressed the button, the carbonite freezing was released. As the man fell on the ground coughing, he was confused where he was. Has been thousands of years since he was in the galaxy of his own eyes, but he sensed everything with us happen and transpired over the centuries and even thousands of years ago. As the man looked up, he sent a glare towards the man that released them. "Palpatine, who are you?" he demanded, raspy tone. As Palpatine made his lies, "I am a Sith Lord, I have come to help you," he said. He made up a lie, saying the Jedi would find him eventually, and they were planning to capture him. "Why, we heard it, and I came here to find you before they could apprehend you. So if I may ask, who are you?" Seriously wondering who that was so important that he was frozen in carbonite. The man spoke, my name," as he remembered. The Jedi filth is spat out with venom in his voice. If it wasn't for him, the Jedi strike force would have never found them, and he would have ruining his own empire by now. But this food ruined his plans. He was mad as he looked up, and Palpatine of glowed yellow eyes, "My name is Darth Malgus, the true emperor of the Sith," he said, using this to his advantage. "I see now. Welcome aboard, Darth Malgus, the emperor of the Sith," he said. Malgus and Palpatine start to laugh. Haha. Scene break. Jedi Council chambers. As a council was discussing the recent activities of the Empire, recently emerged a year ago. "I sense the dark side is strong in this empire. I believe the shift we're looking for is leading it." Yoda, "I believe this too," Mace Windows said, obviously not happy what's happening right now. "Find them and defeat them. We must," Yoda said. "How are we going to do that?" Plo, obviously being the more reasonable one here, he has an empire that is currently stronger than the Republic. "How are we going to defeat him?" he said. "In due time the Force revealed to us Count Dooku." He's becoming more frustrated with the Jedi Council as the center of the room started to glow blue as a woman stepped out. The Jedi Council's on guard. "Who is this person?" They just appeared. They wondered. She was wearing a hood, looked to be an old Republic era Jedi cloak. As she pulled it down, "My name is Satel Shan, Grand Master of the Jedi Order," he said, the calm expression on her face. "Believe you? Why should we?" Yoda said, and equally calm voice. "Satel Shan, send a vision of our past." Every one of them, they all know who this person is now. They agree that you cannot be a Jedi Grandmaster because Yoda is currently in the helm of the seat. I don't care about this title of yours, Atel Shan. I have come to aid you. It's time for the weak to prepare the Jedi for this coming war. One have a sense to reawakening of all the dark side user. The Jedi Council was shocked. Who is this new Sith you speak of? May said in an impatient way. Does the sacking of Coruscant ring any bells in your mind? Atel Shan said. Everyone in the room gasped in horror. Knowing who she is speaking of, it can't be Count Dooku, said yes. Darth Malgus has returned, said Atel Shan. The council was truly afraid of this development. This man nearly destroyed the Jedi Order, made his back, and his bad news for the Jedi. But now they understand the importance of her return. She could potentially prepare the Jedi Order for this coming threat. As Atel Shan said. The current Jedi Order is weak. They could be defeated by mere bounty hunters. This day onwards we'll start to increase our training. I revived the old days, the true Jedi Order. Everyone in the room except Atel Shan looked in shame. How could they let this happen? How are this happen? How did the Jedi would become this weak? All they know. Things are about to change in the Jedi Order. That is it for now. But if you have any recommendations or any requests, I will be glad to hear it. But make sure you like and subscribe for me to continue on this series. The next part I will cover the Phantom Menace, so stay tuned guys.